Liam Miller just had his dream debut for Preston North End as he scored a goal, pretty much had an assist, and had the perfect start as his team sit top of the table. Let's discuss it. We are kicking off this week's episode of Canadians Abroad with Liam Miller, the player Alex and I just interviewed, and I'm very excited for him because he just had a debut to remember. Alex, he was incredible. He started for Preston North End as a wingback, which we will get into. He was very direct, scored a very nice goal, and picked up, won't actually count as an assist, but it was basically his assist. How impressed were you with that performance?
Yeah, it was quite just the start to life back in the championship. Well, in the championship for Liam Miller, he was so electric down that left-hand side. He started as a bit of a wing back, which we can talk about. When he was on with us, he made it clear he does like playing on the wing, although it was a bit of a different role sometimes as well. There's roles where you play as a wing back and you get a bit more freedom, and he certainly got that freedom. You could just see it. His goal as well was just so well taken, the way he ran at defenders, and that's what you want from Miller, because when he has that confidence, he can just take guys on and really make things happen, and allowed them to claim a huge 2-1 win over Plymouth, which climbs them to first still in the championship, leading Leicester by 1 point with 5 wins and 1 draw. So not only a dream start for Miller, but it helps them keep a dream start for his club at the top of the championship.
What a turn of events for Miller, who was struggling a bit in Switzerland before coming back to England. And guess what, Alex? It'd be crazy. I know it's early, but it would be crazy to see him start for a team that could be competing to get promoted to the Premier League. But like you mentioned, and I mentioned as well, it's time to focus in on where he's playing. Now, Preston line up in that 3-4-2-1 system. And like Liam said to us, he likes playing a little bit more advanced, that natural winger. But it seems like this wingback role keeps calling to him, because we've seen him play it there for Canada. We've seen him play there for Basel. Now he's playing there for Preston North End. And he brings something different to that position. Being a right-footed player who likes to cut in and attack from a left-hand side, being allowed to basically have the freedom to go up the park, it could work. And could you see a situation where it kind of transitions over to the national team? Now, I know Davies is there, but I don't know if there's a way that you can see them both kind of featuring. Maybe it's a 3-4-3 and Miller's actually playing as a winger for Canada. But I mean, the way that he's playing right now, a national team call-up's probably on the cards.
Yeah, it's something where you just got to keep building off this. Of course, you got a good debut. You got to go from there, and no doubt he'll have some chance to build the momentum. Nice thing about the championship is, well, the nice thing or the bad thing, depending on the perspectives, you play a lot. So, you get a chance to keep your feet and keep your form and your rhythm. And for Canada, it could be interesting, because as we know, wide players, it's been of a mixed, discussion with Canada, because they've loved playing with wing backs, but also wing backs and wingers. But as we've seen as well, they also need more midfielders. So they started sacrificing wingers as of late to play a 3-5-2, but as we've seen, a 4-3-3 could make sense. So for Miller, it feels like it will ultimately come down to what the new coach decides. So I think if it's a 4-3-3, you could argue he could be starting right now. Certainly it's going to be up to him and Theo Corbianu, and if Miller's consistently performing in the championship, that's going to give him an edge, likely, just given the nature of the championship and how competitive and how grueling it is. Especially if he's on a team pushing for promotion. And if they do play with the wing back, the nice thing is, okay, maybe you don't start over an Alphonso Davies. I mean, there's not many players in the world starting over Alphonso Davies, much less in Canada. But sometimes you could, with Davies, there's flexibility. Sometimes you can throw him on the right and maybe you slot Miller in at left wing back, or maybe you put him ahead of Davies, like you mentioned. Maybe he comes on off the bench and pushes Davies up the field or down the field, depending on the game state. There's a lot of flexibility, and I think for Miller's, then of course he is a winger and he's at his best on the wing, but the fact that he's continuing to add this versatility in this game will only help, especially for the national team, given how versatile the national team is.
Now, one of my favorite things about watching Liam Miller is that he's just a very direct player. The reason he probably doesn't like, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the reason he probably doesn't like playing wingback is because he wants to focus on the offense. That is what he's very good at, running at defenders, cutting in, and taking a shot. He can hit him from close, he can hit him from distance, and I think that goal just really summed up exactly what he's going to bring to Preston North End. The way he was running at the defender, a little shimmy to bring it in, and then a nice, cool finish. To me, that's a player playing with confidence, and I don't know if it's just, again, returning maybe to somewhere he's comfortable with back in England, because he kind of lost a little bit of that confidence in Switzerland. And I think it's so important for a player like this to gain it, because with a new manager, and you kind of touched on it, Alex, but with a potential new manager coming in, we have no idea how this team is going to line up. And if they do a traditional like 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, we need wingers. And Liam Miller has a profile right now that I think could potentially just lock down a starting spot if he continues this form at this level.
Yeah, and I mean the point about him being direct, I mean that's why he's so fun to watch on the wing, because I think a big part of the modern game is that the modern winger sometimes is asked to play a little safer, a little more defensive, tracking back, passing backwards sometimes, even if it means retaining the ball. And of course, there's a reason why it's important to retain possession and defend well in the modern game. And I think he's shown that he can adapt to that, but also, the wingers are at their best. It's a bit traditional, it's a bit romantic to say, but wingers are at their best when they're running at guys and being disruptive. And Miller's goal was a perfect example of what you want from a winger. Just run at your guy, take him on, cut in, shoot, score. Like, you couldn't have written it up better on a on a whiteboard with the pen if I tried, if you tried as well. So and that's what's great about Miller, that he has that direct element of his game. And you add in that he's been playing at wing back. It helps him on his defensive side of his game. We can see he can retain possession as well. So he's putting together everything you want from a winger. So yeah, absolutely. If Canada's playing with wingers, something to watch out for.
It was an incredible debut for Liam. I'm excited to see how his season progresses, if he's going to stay at that wing back or if he'll get pushed up into maybe that floating kind of 10 position, or maybe Preston will switch up the shape somehow. But we're going to transition now from a player who made his debut to a player who made his return, and that is Maxime Crepeau, who made his first appearance for LAFC since suffering that injury, which was 315 days ago. He picked up a win in a 4-2 victory over their rivals, LA Galaxy. What did you make of his return?
Yeah, first and foremost, it was just great to see him back. It was just a great story overall. It was at home at the Bank of California Stadium, or sorry, BMO Stadium, as I'll have to get used to calling it. And he came out early for his warm-up, as goalies do, and the fans were already there, as they do in LA, the 3-2-5-2, clapping, applauding him. So it's fitting that it was back at home and not a road game in northeastern Colorado or something like that. And then just the game itself, he got his touches. He was very accurate with his passing. 2 goals. You'll never be happy as a keeper. He wasn't happy. You can tell he's a competitor. You don't lose that. If anything, you gain that sitting on the sidelines for that long. And but they got the win, and then it was just good to see him back in action. I think it's a good start because, as we can dive into, he has a profile. He's had a profile for a while that's made him intriguing amongst Canadian goalkeepers, and the fact that he was so good with his feet right away on his return, like he hasn't played in that long yet. He was good with his feet, completed most of his passes, was completing his long balls. It shows why he's going to be something to watch in the Canada goal, especially as his reflexes, his awareness, and all that sort of stuff comes back with match fitness.
Yeah, Crepeau is always excellent with the ball at his feet. I was torn on the one goal he let in. It looked like he was a little hesitant to come off his line, kind of got caught flat-footed, and the header just leaped over him. But, I mean, he was out for 315 days. Like, this is expected, and it's important that he's returning when he does right now, because with that new Canadian manager, whenever he comes in, he's going to have to make a very difficult decision. That's who's going to be the starting keeper. It looks like Milan Borjan is probably on his way. I mean, there's reports, obviously, that are out there of him leaving the Gold Cup, maybe because he was told that Dane St. Clair was going in. Maybe it had to do with the fact that he wanted to join his club when the European season began. I don't 100% know. I just know that it looks like it's time to actually eventually move on from Borjan. And I think that time is now. So with Crepeau finally returning from injury and getting back, hopefully, to full fitness by the time Canada play Japan, who do you think has the better edge to start in that match? Dane St. Clair, Crepeau, or someone else?
Well, I'd say probably St. Clair for now, just because, again, you have to remember this game is approaching rapidly here, and St. Clair's been playing all year. He's had that rhythm. He's played in goal for Canada. But I think certainly for maybe, I'd push maybe next year for Copa America. It could be a pretty even race, especially once Crepeau gets back to full fitness, because it'll also come down to profile. And I think it's, as we're starting to see, assuming Crepeau gets back to full speed in the level he was at before, I mean, no reason why he shouldn't, based on what we've seen. Like, they all bring different things. Like St. Clair is just, you see the body, the size, like what he brings. And he's decent with the ball at his feet. He can come off his line quick. Like the new manager like that. Crepeau, as we know, very good on the ball. And what's great with LAFC, we saw it last year. Sometimes he just chill at the 30, 40-yard mark, kind of in the half, just getting touches, helping LA push forward. Then there's Sirois. I mean, we can't forget Jonathan Sirois and how good he's been for Montreal. making some great saves. He's also good with his feet as well. So there's some options there. Heck, Tom McGill's still hanging around in the Brighton system and could also get a look. So Canada's safe to say Canada's setting goal on. I think really especially with the three MLS keepers, it feels like it's so close between them all that St. Clair has the edge today. But you could tell me in a year that Crepeau's starting, and I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. That means he's just come back and hit his feet again for LA, and that shows how close it is.
The goalkeeping race is definitely intriguing to me because before Crepeau's injury, I thought he was a locked-on heir for Milan Borjan. I thought that if he didn't ever make a match, it was Crepeau's to lose, and he kind of showed that a little bit. But all of a sudden, this injury is here, and Dane St. Clair stepped up with a big season with Minnesota. He's now played for Canada in the Gold Cup, and it's a lot closer debate, I think. And on top of it, you have a wild card like Jonathan Sirois. And if you haven't been following it right now, Jonathan Sirois picked up another clean sheet over the weekend against Chicago. He now has 11 clean sheets in 27 appearances so far. And it's not unrealistic to think that there's a new manager out there that could maybe fancy him over the other two.
Yeah, and Sirois is an absolute wild card. I mean, first off, he's young. Like he has a good 4 or 5 years on Dane St. Clair, who is also young. It just for perspective, and it's Crepeau, pushing the late 20s. For someone like Sirois, if he steps in as your starter, you could see him starting for Canada for a decade at his age, because he's still in his early 20s, and for as well, he's got the pedigree of this guy went on loan to the CPL, and in his first year he won goalkeeper of the year, and then his second year he was still very much in the discussion, and now when he got the job, he got a bit fortunate with the injury to James Pantemis, but also to his credit, James Pantemis has been healthy since the middle of the summer, and he just can't get the job back because Sirois has been that good. And you add in that he's good with his feet, he's calm, composed, and as well, he's not the tallest goalie in the world, but he's just got great reflexes. He reads the game well. He's always just seems to be a good position to make saves. I think he's a wild card, especially because he can play under different managers, different styles, like you could see him playing a bit deeper and not making touches on the ball and being influential. Sometimes that's a bit more how Valor played in the CPL. They weren't building out the back as much with Sirois, but he's gone to Montreal, he's built, and he's also looked comfortable. And I think for a manager, that you could, that versatility, his youth, the experience he already has for his age absolutely makes him a wild card.
A couple of Canadian men's national team players kicked off their European group stage campaigns this week. To begin, there was Alistair Johnson, who made his UEFA Champions League debut as a starter for Celtic in their road game against Feyenoord. Unfortunately, his debut did not go to plan. Celtic ended up falling 2-0 to Feyenoord on the day and had 2 red cards, making for a tough ending to the game. They were just under siege for most of it, but Johnston was one of the bright lights despite that. He was just his usual reliable self on the right, retained possession, was having a few good defensive actions when he had the chance to contest some duels. So it was good to see from AJ. Otherwise, Stefan Eustáquio was in the heart of Porto's midfield, and their 3-1 road win over Shakhtar Donetsk was a good performance from Eustáquio, who was playing a bit more of a 6 at times, but then he drifted forward as well on a few occasions, nearly had a great goal that was saved. So it was good to see his just active involvement once again in a midfield in a Champions League game for Porto. Otherwise, Alphonso Davies was at left back for Bayern in their 4-3 entertaining win over Manchester United. Davies was very lively down that left-hand side. It was a very busy game, made an early crucial clearance early on and got a chance to go forward on a few occasions as per usual. Otherwise, in UEFA Conference League, Jonathan David scored the first goal of the Conference League group stages in a 2-0 Lille win over Ljubljana, so that was good to see from David. Meanwhile, Milan Borjan ended up starting in their clash against Klaksvik on Thursday.
Lyon kickstart their campaign with a massive 4-0 victory, and in that match, Vanessa Gilles started and scored a goal. Fantastic start to the season for both her and her club.
Julia Grosso was not one to dwell on the heartbreak her team suffered in Champions League qualifiers last weekend, as she came back and ended up helping Juventus claim a 3-2 come-from-behind win over Pomigliano. Grosso ended up scoring a crucial goal in the game and was named player of the match, as she picks up where she left off in last year's Serie A campaign. Marie-Yasmin Aladou keeps scoring for Benfica after scoring in her Super Cup debut and her Champions League qualifier debut. She has now scored in her Benfica League debut as they ended up picking a 3-1 win over Torrense with Aladou providing a goal off the bench. Also in Portugal, 19-year-old Olivia Smith scored her first professional goal for Sporting CP in an 8-0 win over Villaverdense. Great finish touch, put it right in the low corner. She also had an assist as well in the game. So congrats to Smith. It's always impressive to see someone that young getting her first steps in the professional game and already getting on the board.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for on this episode of Canadians Abroad. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to tune in for next week's update.